Good morning, everyone. I see lots of folks joining the line. So happy that everyone is here this morning. Welcome to the webinar. We're going to jump right in today as we have an excellent lineup of presenters and information to share. And we want to have some time at the end for question and answer and discussion as well. So again, thank you for being here. We're excited that you've joined us for the first of a three-part webinar series about tribal innovations and success stories in Healthy Homes outreach. And I think right now you may be able to see some of our webcams. We are going to pop those off just because we've had some glitches this morning with the technology. So hopefully that won't happen again. But hello from our faces, and now we're here behind the scenes. Okay. Excellent. One moment. All right. This webinar is co-hosted by the Tribal Healthy Homes Network and EPA Region 10, which covers Idaho, Oregon, Washington, and Alaska. My name is Erin McTighe, and I'm with the EPA Region 10 Tribal Air Program. I'll be working with Gillian Middlestedt and the team here to co-host the webinar today. Gillian is the director of the Tribal Healthy Homes Network and a longstanding collaborator of ours on healthy homes and all sorts of air quality work. And I think you'll find that her team and the speakers today will be providing an excellent set of valuable resources for tribes interested in doing this work or already doing this work. So I'm just going to go over a few key resources this morning, and then after that I'll be turning the mic over to Gillian, who's going to be talking about a few key social marketing principles to consider as you plan your work or are already doing your work. And Gillian's also going to share some background on Tribal Healthy Homes Network, their organizations, and the resources that they have to share with tribes, such as tools and training, and in particular the Air Matters Toolkit. And then after Gillian shares some information, Sydney Jansen with the Tribal Healthy Homes Network, she's an excellent intern that's been working very hard on evaluating some data and some interview questions and information that she's been working to gather from about 16 different tribal programs who've been using tools from Tribal Healthy Homes Network, in particular the Air Matters Toolkit, and has just gathered a lot of great information to share. And then last but not least, we're going to be turning the mic over to Tiffany Losada, who's with the Porch Band of Creek Indians, the Environmental Grants Program Coordinator. And she's going to share some information about an Healthy Homes outreach program that she adapted specifically for the needs of her community with some unique partners. So I'm excited to have all of these folks here today to share information with you. And just a few logistics up front, probably pretty similar to other webinars you've participated in. Feel free to ask questions anytime by chatting or typing into the chat box. Eileen Gagney, the technical advisor for Tribal Healthy Homes Network, will be monitoring the chat box and answering as much as she can or queuing up questions for the live Q&A. We'll have some time at the end after the set of presentations. And also know the webinar will be recorded and the slides will be made available, as well as any other resources shared after the webinar. So just to start up front with a few things that we hope you all take away, some goals for the webinar. Most importantly, just knowing that you can have an impact on community health, whether you're joining from a tribal health program, a clinic, a tribal environmental program, air quality program, or housing department. Know that you each have a unique opportunity and role to impact community health, in particular while doing this indoor air work. And I think you'll also take away from this and the next two webinars in this series that tribes are really doing some innovative work, adapting tools and programs that are out there to really meet the needs of their communities. And there are a lot of ideas that we hope that you adopt and adapt and also share with others. Excuse me. And also we hope that you leave knowing that there are resources available to support you Some of us on the phone here from EPA and Tribal Healthy Homes Network can provide training, technical support. There are tons of different materials that you can take and use for your work in your own communities and adapt them for your needs. And also there are a number of different funding streams that can allow for indoor air work. Of course, there are always a lot of priorities that pull at the different funding streams that are available, especially for tribes who are often doing a lot of work with different sources of funding and often not enough funding. Please know that there are at least a number of resources that have some flexibility that we can hopefully help describe. In particular, a few resources that come to mind include the EPA Indian General Assistance Program, the Clean Air Act grants, HUD grants, USDA, and also Bureau of Indian Affairs, for example, the HIP program. And we do have an excellent resource to share with you in a bit, just to give you some information on how you can find different funding streams. So just to start up front, though I guess I'm kind of preaching to the choir and looking at the attendees here about why indoor air quality matters, but it's important to share and I guess remind ourselves all the time that the indoor environment is really important because we spend so much of our time here in our homes, and maybe even more so over the past year. And indoor air is often more polluted than outdoor air. And though we often think, I think the general public, is typically aware of impacts of indoor air pollutants on, our breathing systems, causing irritation to our lungs. There are also short and long-term impacts in a number of different areas for our health, our lungs, our heart, our immune system, and more. So the work that we're talking about here today really is critical for protecting health. And the good news is that there are small changes that we can make and inexpensive changes that can help protect our families and families in our communities. You'll see my daughter here in this picture looking perhaps a little bit unimpressed with my do-it-yourself filter fan that I built last summer when wildfire smoke was really bad here in Washington State. And I do think, despite the look on her face, that the air was improved because of that filter fan. So again, has been a really unprecedented year, making the work that we're doing around indoor spaces, indoor air, healthy homes even more important. Wildfire smoke was particularly horrible last year with wildfires all across the West and beyond. And of course, I don't need to go into detail, but the impact of the pandemic and COVID-19 has just been so intense. And we know that tribes in particular have been really impacted and have also just showed extreme resilience and creativity in being able to address the challenges that they faced over the past year and more. So just wanted to give a nod to that. We've really seen that tribes are leading the way and innovating and adapting their work around indoor air and other areas as well, of course, climate change and beyond. So that's why we hope to share this set of webinars with you all to showcase some of that exciting work. And just a few images that I put up here of other programs. You can see a filter fan loan program from the Quinault Indian Nation, an excellent do-it-yourself video, or a video on how to build your own filter fan, like the one I showed on the previous slide at the Colville Tribes in Washington, an image from the ice road outside of the native village of Kwethluk in Alaska, and the air quality flag program that the Tulalip tribes are implementing down on the bottom right. So one of the things that we've seen and hope to showcase in this webinar series is that the tribes and organizations who've really had a lot of success in innovating and reaching their communities have used this kind of approach of braiding different sources of funds together, whether it be EPA, HUD, USDA. I have just a few examples listed here, but there are others, as well as partnering with perhaps non-traditional entities that they haven't partnered with before within the tribe or externally to really reach their communities and accomplish their goals. And so just to finish here with a few key resources for you all to take away, and Gillian will be following up after the webinar with the links to these if you don't have them already. The Tribal Indoor Air Funding Directory is a very comprehensive set of resources, different funding streams that can be used, accessed by tribes to do indoor air, housing, energy efficiency work with really excellent search terms to help you dial into the specific resources resources that are out there that might fulfill the work that you're doing, whether it's working on wood stoves or ventilation or broader programs. And it also includes case studies that are really helpful. Another key resource that I have to mention is our own agency here at the US EPA. Though we're not a housing agency and we don't do much in terms of having a lot of regulatory authority for indoor spaces, we do have a number of excellent resources that can be used. Training, technical assistance, we do a lot of coordination of partners to bring to you trainings like today's webinar. And we also provide funding again through the Indian General Assistance or IGAP program, as well as the Tribal Clean Air Act program, among a few others. So just a sampling of some of the resources that we have available to support the work in your communities. I've just put a few snapshots of some of the key resources that have been popular with tribes in Region 10 and timely as well. So mold and moisture resources are always really critical. We see a lot of mold and moisture in our homes, mine included. Work around some resources around wood smoke and home heating, how to build a a firewood storage shed, and then also some resources specifically related to COVID-19. We have a website that's being updated all the time to include the latest science as the COVID-19 research evolves. We have a lot more information here about indoor air and coronavirus that might be of use to you. Additionally, related to wildfire smoke and COVID-19, there's a resource around air cleaners in your home that might be of interest. And lastly, I just wanted to put in a quick plug that Tribal Healthy Homes Network and EPA have been working really closely together for about a year now to update the very popular and beautiful calendars that have resident education, healthy homes, tips and tools for each season of the year. And so we have some printed copies that are going to be made available in Region 10 coming soon. And we've also developed a new poster that could be posted in a health clinic or another community space, and also tailored to your needs. So feel free to reach out to us if you're interested in these, and we'll also make sure to share the links to where they can be printed and how-tos, guidance for how to print them when they're available within the next month or so. That being said, I'm just going to briefly throw up our contact information here, but we'll share it again at the end. Feel free to reach out to us with any questions. And I am going to turn the mic over to Gillian.
All right, quick sound check, make sure my fellow panelists, I'm also going to do, yeah, it's unable to share web. Oh, it is, hello. Didn't mean to do that. We are not going to use our audio for the very reason that this software is glitchy. And if you heard screams this morning in any part of the country, that was me yelling at the GoToWebinar coders. All right, I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and briefly confirm that we are. All right, Erin, can you unmute and confirm that this screen is showing?
Yes. Looks
okay,
great.
excellent. So good morning. Yes, I really was screaming at the coders. It's so I apologize for any glitches in advance. So I'm Gillian Middlestead. I'm the director of the Tribal Healthy Homes Network, as well as the Partnership for Air Matters. If you've seen that phrase or heard us reference it, it's a nonprofit organization that runs the Toolkit program. As many of you may know who are grant recipients, you can't actually process orders or purchase equipment routinely as a grantee. So the Partnership for Air Matters is our house for that. What I'm going to talk about today is building opportunities for empowerment and how social marketing is one way that we can address and help build empowerment around safe and healthy housing. Tools and toolkits are one way we can do that, which is the topic. I do want to just scroll, there we go. I want to thank the Tulalip tribes really quickly too. Their leadership, their staff, the people we work with. We pilot and collaborate with them on all our programs, and they are also our pass-through for Tribal Healthy Homes Network. These are grandchildren of longtime colleagues of mine, and I just want to share that and thank them for their support. And I'm going to also say that at the end of every webinar, meaning all three, we're going to raffle off toolkits. So hang on till the end. We'll randomly choose a number and somebody will be sent a complete toolkit. If you can complete all 3, we're also going to send you a certificate of completion. If you have scheduling conflicts with one of the remaining, you can also just watch the video recorded, which is recording now, and then we'll send you the certificate. All right, I'm going to jump into my slides, and I'm going to start actually with a brief story and probably a little bit of a relatable story. So if you're having sleep issues, what do you normally do? You might read an online article. You might talk to your doctor, your best friend, an auntie, a coworker who also looks tired. You might search Amazon for natural sleep aids. You might spend too much money on a fancy new pillow that ironically appeared as an ad on your social media feed after you read that online sleep article. You might try opening or closing windows, bedding. You might kick your partner, dog, or kids out of the room, or maybe all 3. But chances are you do as many of these as possible until something works. And if I could see you all, I'm guessing that there's sort of that look like, oh yeah, we've all been there, right? So the question or the challenge is that it probably wasn't one piece of information that led you to finding the right solution and there was trial and error and exploration, right? And what research tells us is that if you did make a behavior change, it was likely that you went through a process called discovery learning. So discovery learning, the way they describe it, is that it's active participation in the learning process rather than passively receiving knowledge. It also requires people to ask questions and expand their thinking and to develop their own tentative answers. And finally, it tends to produce stronger learning outcomes because we build a sense of accomplishment in the process when we find our own solutions. So discovery learning and behavior change can take place through social marketing, which is what I'm going to talk about now for just a few slides. And social marketing specifically, there's multiple definitions, but one is that it's a method for influencing behaviors that improve public health, prevent injuries, and protect the environment. But you have to step back for a minute and say, what is the behavior change process that we're even trying to approach? So I'll start here, for example, if education and awareness is your aim, you're right here at these are sort of classic stages of behavior change, right? You're sending to your community information that helps them move from this pre-contemplation stage where they're unaware to a contemplation stage where they're aware of the problem. Social marketing is really intended to ideally hit the next steps where you're trying to induce action. And the focus is on preparation, action, and of course then maintenance to sustain those behaviors. However, we have to step back first because behavior change first requires that we believe in something. We have to believe that a risk actually exists. And I think COVID has given us a very clear indication that people have extremely varied responses to technical information or to scientific information from a government body. So the risk has to be believed. People have to believe that the risk actually applies to them, that they're not immune, and that they have the power to protect themselves from that risk. So those are precursors to any of us making change. The challenge in the field that we're in indoor air and healthy homes is that how do you communicate risk if the risks are often, though not always, invisible, odorless, and tasteless? The other challenge is, as I click on this and you see this graphic, is everything from VOCs, formaldehydes, molds, mycotoxins, asbestos, radon, phthalates. They don't necessarily have a short-term manifestation. It could be that you have an asthma episode or allergenic response. It could also be that it takes 15 to 20 years for the DNA mutation and for something to show up in learning disabilities or birth defects or cancer. So it's really, we have a real challenge. Tools I discovered with many talented colleagues and working in the Tulalip community for many years are one way we've discovered that we can try to make that risk real. Because through tools and toolkits, we're not only educating, but we're trying to engage and empower, and we're really doing what I talked about earlier, which is that discovery learning process, or we're hoping to do that. So what we piloted in 2014 in Alaska and at Tulalip, the toolkits, and some things we've learned in the 7 years since. And the whole purpose for this webinar series is to hear from all these innovations and success stories from tribes. But first of all, they're not a replacement for in-home assessment. The toolkits are great, but they don't, they're not a substitute for doing inspections and repairs when there's a significant hazard, something like radon or extensive mold. and they're not a holistic intervention, right? They need to be supplemented. If you're trying to achieve a multi-pronged intervention, you may also need a pharmacist involved with asthma medication treatment, for example. I've got about a minute and a half left, so I'm just going to click through here. What we have learned most importantly is that tools are really important when trust is a barrier to entering homes. And I'm sure depending on your community, that may or may not be an issue. It's certainly something we encountered. It's also useful when there is limited staff time and resources and you cannot personally reach every single resident in your community. And finally, the tools probably most powerfully are a way to actualize air quality. They make it real and they go to that axiom, which is if you can measure it, it exists. And that's in part what the genesis of the tools were about. Some of you may be familiar with it. If not, the list, the yellow graphics on your right indicate what is currently in the toolkit. At the bottom in the light green, I'm showing some things that we are exploring in the next year that are a higher cost. They're difficult in size. They're producing some animated videos, but they're elements that we found through our research could genuinely strengthen the toolkit. Over the next hour and then the next couple webinars, you'll hear these types of examples from tribes of things that they've done with their tools. This is a graphic showing many of the different tribes and organizations that have used the tools in a variety of ways. This graphic in particular then shows by EPA region, and I think we're at close to 1,800 tools have been distributed to households. I'll be sending out a handout with these examples as well later on for those of you in tribal or non-tribal organizations that want to look at the applications to your asthma program. These are some of the methods. So Erin, if you want to go ahead and end my broadcast and switch it over to the next speaker. Thank you.
Thanks, Gillian. Yes, handing it over to Sydney.
Hello, everyone. Just want to make sure that you all can hear me and see my screen.
Looks great, sounds great. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, hello, my name is Sydney Jansen. I am currently the Air Matters Program Evaluation Intern for the Tribal Healthy Homes Network. And today I'm looking forward to the opportunity to share some of my key takeaways from the Air Matters evaluation process. So as Gillian mentioned, the Air Matters Toolkit is a 10-piece set of tools designed to improve one's indoor air quality. And with my research, I wanted to understand the tribal and agency experience to strengthen the Tribal Healthy Homes Network support with the Air Matters Toolkit program. In addition, I also wanted to learn about the innovations and successes and lessons learned for the Air Matters Toolkits, and I'm looking forward to sharing about those with you today and with future webinars. So in total, my data set consisted of 16 representatives from tribes and agencies that I conducted semi-structured interviews with. And to be eligible for this evaluation, they must have been a tribal staff member or an indoor air quality professional, and they must have ordered and distributed the Air Matters toolkits, or they have implemented their own toolkit program. So to illustrate the overall uses of the Air Matters Toolkit program and to provide a general snapshot for you all, we've assembled this data. And as you can see, people have different application types. So on the left, we see people who have used it for outreach and education within my 16 people cohort. And then we also see that they used it as an intervention strategy through distribution. And so half of the programs had a specific target population in mind, such as families with asthma or people within the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families program. And the other half used it to distribute or educate just the general community of tribal members and residents. And what's interesting is that it was really common for people to use the intervention approach, and they ordered more toolkits than people who used them for education and outreach. And in the sample, over 90% of the toolkits ordered for intervention were distributed, which is great. So when I was reflecting on my interviews and my data, I found 4 key themes. The first theme that I found was that people adapted the Air Matters Toolkit program based on their community's needs. And what I mean by that is that some people introduced some new tools into the toolkit, such as buckets, tote bags, or humidifier bags, which just remove some of the moisture and humidity in the rooms. And then some people also took out specific tools. So the pest control kit, radon kit, or the hydrometers were taken out in certain communities. And the reason why they did this was because, well, one, the indoor air quality issue may not have been as prevalent in their community. For example, some communities didn't have lead-based paint as an issue or pests, so they didn't have to distribute those materials, as well as some of the tools were not practical to distribute. So for example, the radon kit required that you take a sample and send it out for testing, and that wasn't necessarily practical in some communities. And so my second key theme is that people specified their methods and goals when implementing these programs. And so what I mean is that when you're implementing a toolkit program, you should clearly identify your goals. So is it to educate or intervene? And choose the appropriate method that best fulfills the purpose. So education and outreach or intervention. And what I found is that programs were most successful in community engagement and by doing that. So if they wanted to intervene, they distributed most, if not all, of their toolkits. And if they wanted to do community outreach and educate, they did so at several local events. And in combination with this, having a timeline for distribution and education helped with them meeting their goals. And something that I want to acknowledge is that funding could serve as a determining factor in your method and goals. So some budgets allowed tribes to purchase only one kit for educational purposes, whereas others were able to purchase more to distribute. Either way is fine. It's a great method either way. And so my third theme was that there were two main factors that impacted the engagement methods. So for one, your program type. Whether you are educating people or trying to intervene, that influences how you engage with people and initiate these conversations, as well as recipient interest and response. So when interacting with people, the staff persons tended to adapt their approach. So if people were more interested, they might answer more questions, go into a little bit more detail. If people were less interested, then they might have just dropped the toolkit off and offered their contact information if they had any questions. And the final theme that I saw within my research was the intensity of engagement differed by program. And what I mean is that some programs were high intensity, meaning that, for example, they scheduled one-on-one conversations ahead of time with each recipient and distributed the tools and demonstrated the toolkits. So as you see, it's high community engagement versus medium intensity would be having conversations with individuals and answering those questions, but perhaps doing that without scheduling that beforehand. And then low intensity could be utilizing another department or program to distribute the kits, which all of these are valuable. It's just a matter of how intense their engagement with each person was. So aside from the four themes that I mentioned previously, there were several interesting ways that people innovated. So for one, programs varied in their strategies. A unique aspect of the Air Matters Toolkit is that it can be adapted to fit the needs of many communities, and it can be distributed through many channels. So for example, some people used it at health fairs, raffles, community events, whereas others used Meals on Wheels or schools, or distributed it directly to elders or homeowners. Next is that people use the Air Matters Toolkit to spark conversation. So for tribes who use the Air Matters Toolkit as an outreach and education tool, they use this as like visual tools to initiate conversations about indoor air quality and as a method to encourage people to ask questions about indoor air quality. One of the people that I interviewed mentioned that they were able to answer questions about indoor air quality that some people might not typically ask, such as what is mold, or what do I do if lead paint is in my house? So really building that rapport through this demonstration. And finally, they illustrated the importance of indoor air quality and its impacts on health. And the last innovation that I saw was that people partnered with other departments to be multi-strategic. So reaching out to as many people as possible, reaching out to the community as much as possible, trying to promote that behavior change or educate people. And in terms of COVID-19, some tribes used other departments to distribute the tools, which Tiffany will be talking a little bit more about shortly. So thank you all so much for your time today. Next week, I will be talking about the innovations, successes, and lessons learned from the Air Matters Toolkit program. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sydney. I really appreciate that. Such valuable data and learnings. Thank you very much. That is an excellent segue. I'm going to switch the controls over to Tiffany Losada for her presentation. So hopefully, Tiffany, you can bring your slides up next. Thank you.
Hopefully you can see that and hear me clearly.
Yes and yes. Thank you.
Excellent. So my name is Tiffany Lozada. I am the Environmental Grants Coordinator for the Porch Band of Creek Indians. And I'm the main one that deals with the Clean Air Program. So our air program is funded by a 103 grant. We have a few activities that are under it. Mainly is the MET station, which we are actually in a partnership with the University of South Alabama, working with their students as part of their Mesonet. We also do indoor air quality inspections. Not currently, we are not allowed to go into tribal members' homes or other tribal buildings currently. We also do things with energy efficiency, training, and then the Healthy Homes Initiative. So our Healthy Homes Initiative started out as a way to work with housing to educate homeowners and tribal members about healthy homes. We started out with me being the keynote speaker at the housing fair in September of 2019. We were going to be conducting classes for new homeowners that were going through the housing program. And basically it was you attend the class, you get one of the Healthy Homes kits. And it kept getting rescheduled throughout 2019. So then we get to 2020 and COVID hit. So everything closed. You could not have meetings in person. You could not go into tribal members' homes, or like I mentioned, even other tribal departments' buildings. We were working from home for roughly 6 months before we were allowed back in our offices. So during that time, I got drawn into a conversation about potentially providing services to tribal members who had positive cases of COVID and providing contractual services for disinfecting and cleaning of their homes after the appropriate quarantine period. And it was mentioned that, there may be people who don't want outside companies coming into their homes. Well, my first thought was, I have supplies that could be used to clean and disinfect. So I reached out to our Family Services Division, which had a food initiative going that provides food boxes for families that have COVID positive cases. So it was agreed that they would distribute the boxes in addition to their food boxes, their kits. So we scheduled a phone call with staff from my region, Region 4, with Erin and Jillian from Tribal Healthy Homes Network and Region 10. I believe Eileen was also involved in that call. We discussed several different thought processes and things I could add to the kit to address COVID concerns. And so I took their suggestions and added stuff to what I already have. So what's in the kit? What are we addressing? So environmentally friendly cleaning, or green cleaning. I chose mostly to stick with 7th generation products, which are actually listed on the EPA list for being approved disinfectants for COVID. We're also talking about energy efficiency with the LED light bulbs and LED night light. Because we're in the South, we have a lot of moisture, so we chose to address reducing moisture and mold prevention through using bamboo charcoal bags and also providing more information. We're also talking about integrated pest management, or IPM. We have a bioinsecticide, which is a plant-based pesticide. It's the orange guard here. We also have a program that's anti-litter and recycling. So we have a bag called a hang around tote. The packaging that we use, we try to use, has partially recycled content, and we also provide information on all that. So here's just a few pictures. This is actually the front of the kit. I made the great mistake of trying to put that on initially using spray glue. Don't try it. It gets everywhere, sticks to everything. It's just not fun. I found stickers that I could print and then stick on the boxes, which works so much better. This is actually the inside of the box where everything is in. I'll tell you in a minute about the burlap bag, but basically the burlap bag contains all of the cleaning supplies, and we chose to do that to emphasize those specifically because of COVID. That's the hang around tote. I love this bag. I use it every single day. So basically it's a wastebasket for your car you can hang over your gear shift. And this is the magnets that we have that are in there, and also by a lucky mistake from our supplier, they sent me keychains instead of magnets, so I have magnets and keychains both that go in the kits. And that's actually the first 10 kits that were assembled. I don't know if you saw, but in there, there are red folders. This sticker is put on the top of every box, and it asks for people to read the information in the red folder after you open the top of the kit. This is all of the information that is contained in the kit. No, I'm not going through all of it because it's a lot. I do want to call attention to, this is the COVID-19 cleaning kit. I took Eileen and Aaron's advice, I believe, to include pictures, really simple, direct wording. To do this, this is actually the only piece of paper in that folder that is printed on cardstock to call attention to it as well. This is the front page of a packet. It lists everything that's in the kit. The items in red are what is contained in the burlap bag or the COVID-19 cleaning kit. The packet of papers also includes information on all of the other products that are in the box, as well as uses for them. And then I just had to include this because I borrowed this from the Tribal Healthy Homes Network calendar. I did adapt it to our some of our area, and we will be putting together an actual calendar of our own using some of our own tribal pictures or art from our kids. So, like I mentioned earlier, it's funded by our EPA 103 grant primarily. Last year, we were able to secure some additional funding through a pesticides grant that is part of our PPG, our Performance Partnership Grant. The pesticides grant specifically pays for the integrated pest management materials that are in the kits. We also have tribal government funding available should we choose to use it. So far, I haven't dipped into it, but I have it available if I need it. Working with Family Services was a new partnership that I had actually never considered. When I was thinking Healthy Homes kits, my thought process was housing. So as part of all this, working with Family Services, I spoke with the Family Services director, and she relayed a story to me. I call it the box story. So she had an elderly lady who was receiving a food box through the Food Initiative. One of her friends had actually already received one of the Healthy Homes kits. So she contacted Family Services and wanted to know when she was going to get her box. When they questioned her what she was talking about, she's, it's the box with the cleaning materials and stuff. Well, they offered cleaning materials they had on hand, and she just would not have it. She absolutely insisted that she had to have her box. So that led to us going ahead and getting more boxes to Family Services. We did 30 of them initially put together. 22 of them went to Family Services. We held 8 back to go to our staff so that they could evaluate the products and the information in the kits themselves. Since then, we've actually had a request from Family Services for an additional 50 boxes. And of course, this story is also going to appear in the National Tribal Air Association's Status of Tribal Air Report, or STAR. It's the feature story for our region. Lessons learned. Have a good solid plan for distribution, and then have another plan, because it's not going to work the way you think it will. And I mentioned looking for other partnerships other than the obvious. If I had not had a situation come up, I would never have thought of partnering with Family Services, and so far that has been the best decision we have made. Make sure you have plenty of space for materials that are going in the kits. My office has turned into a storage area, and I don't have room for anything other than my desk, those materials, and me to get out of the office. Also, you need a plan for when you're getting low on supplies. We have had a really hard time getting supplies in the quantities that we need. And there's also been shipping problems where materials have showed up and they've been damaged or they just got lost. So it's a problem. We're also in the future going to be changing up or reducing the kit contents. Or if we find something that maybe work better than what's already in there. The Orange Guard biopesticide that I mentioned earlier is fairly expensive, and I can't get it in bulk quantities any longer. So I have already found one that will replace it, and it's about half of the cost, which means I can add other stuff to it as well. And that's my contact info. I think that will do it, Erin.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Tiffany. There were so many lessons learned throughout your presentation and excellent tips for other tribes and communities. So thank you so much. Please don't go anywhere because we're going to have some time for a question and answer and discussion in just a minute. That being said, I am going to turn the sharing over to Gillian. I believe she's going to be doing some poll questions and also perhaps the raffle for the Air Matters Toolkit. So hopefully, Gillian, you have control.
Actually, yeah, I don't know that I need to share my screen. Can you hang on to it? I'm going to go ahead and just hit the polls. So we would really appreciate getting a little bit more information about all your experiences out there. So I have a couple of questions we're going to do via poll. I'm looking at this. All right, I'm going to go ahead and launch this. And Erin, if it doesn't show up, then we can, I think it's working.
Looks good.
All right. If you all want to take a minute and go ahead, and I'll give you about 10-15 seconds to, and this should be a check all that apply. We need the game show music. Okay, give you about 3 more seconds on that one. Looks like some people are still inputting. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and close that poll now. I'm going to share the response. So you can also get a C, or get a C, you can get a C. Get a chance to see what your colleagues and partners viewed. It looks like, you know, the staff time and the funding are dominant, and then the partnerships with other programs. All right, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and pose the next question. Or maybe I'm not. The polls is a little bit tricky. All right. Yeah, Aaron, it is not letting me go. It's frozen in the poll mode. So do you want to go ahead and go to Q&A? And I'll see if I can play
Sure.
around with this.
Yeah, it doesn't give me the option either for some reason. Yes, but I'm going to leave you with the presenter role, as I believe you have a few slides you were going to bring up to facilitate question and answer.
Okay, actually, let's go ahead while I pull those up because my screen is actually frozen.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, so if you have those, also Eileen, let's go to you and just see if there's any questions in the chat box that have come up to start our conversation.
Okay, well, hi, everyone. You can hear me, Gil?
We can hear you great, thank you.
Okay, great. So there's one interesting question that came up, and I hope folks that were maybe having some issues hearing us can now hear us. And let's see, one was, are these kits intended to be given out every year? And I said, absolutely. But I think also it depends on the need, your funding. They can be adapted, they can be added to, you can customize them for your, personal tribe or village or whatever you need. So yes, and I think as more and more people become aware of them, as we heard from Tiffany, some people really want their boxes. So, and then there's Gillian, do you want to respond to any of that as well?
No, because
Okay.
I was busy doing technology.
Okay,
and
never mind.
I'm not on it, and I was able to get a new poll up. So
Okay,
I'm
good.
going to give you a pause on the questions, and hopefully that next poll is being distributed.
Looks good.
Okay. I'm going to leave it open about 10 more seconds. We only have about 25% who have voted. So,
I mean, Gillian, maybe I'm
yeah.
guessing when you ask this question, you're asking, when you say facilitators, aspects of your work or supports that help get your Healthy Homes outreach off the ground effective.
Yeah, thank you. I had that somewhere else. It's okay. Anyway, that wording didn't show up. All right, I'll hold it open for about 5 more seconds. There's a few people still voting. All right, and I believe I can share. Yep. All right, again, it's pretty broadly distributed, but so learning about other tribal programs, 63% of you responded, that helps you in your programs. So glad to hear that. It's one reason that, we want to profile your programs as much as possible. All right, let's see how well I can toggle to the next one. It could be, Eileen, do you have another question there that we can go to while this
Sure.
I unfreeze this?
Yeah, this is a great one. Let's see. One is, are these kids, okay, that was done. Issue of attic infiltration being addressed, not yet. I'll come back to that one. Are there any ideas for incentives to encourage more participation for tribal citizens? And it's a great question. It's always an issue, or tends to be an issue that we have. And I was about to put this in the respond box of raffles, free giveaways. When I perform a lot of health fairs, and you'll hear more about this next week, I hook people with free microfiber cloths because everybody loves those. And then I start talking about green cleaning, and I start sort of evolving into the kits themselves. And, it's just really to help them. So are you ready, Gillian, or?
I am,
Okay.
yep.
Yep.
And
next week.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's a great question. I do find that green cleaning tends to excite and interest people the most, and it goes to that discovery learning, because when I'm doing outreach, people often want to share what they've done around green cleaning, which is a nice way to engage. And I think Mansel's on today and a few others. Mansell, if you want us to unmute you could also address that question for us. So I'm going to launch the next question. And it's how, if you've used the tools or your own tools and your own kits that you've assembled, in what ways are they helpful with your outreach?
Thank you, Mansell.
And I think I can unmute him after the poll here, so we'll and I'll give this about 10 more seconds, and while I'm doing that, I see a hand raised that I believe, Aaron, you might be able to look at that and see if you can unmute the person.
Okay.
Okay, about, I think I said 10 seconds. We're going to go, we'll say 10 more seconds. We're at 43% have voted on this poll. Slowing down a little bit, so I'm going to go ahead and close this poll and share the response. Again, it's pretty evenly distributed. I noticed that not too many people said they draw people to your table at fairs and community events. I know people certainly look at them. I'll just say that when we do give out something for free, it certainly enables people to look. I think the reason we get 200 to 300 people who look at our kits at the Tulalip Health Fairs, but it's also because if people get us to sign a piece of paper, the Tulalip Tribes raffles off huge prizes at the end of every health fair, like, you know, new televisions and computers, and it's pretty impressive. So we have a very strong incentive for people to come to our booth. All right, I think that's my last poll. I have another poll about the use of videos, which I'm going to go ahead and do next week. So I'm going to hand it over, mute myself, and hand it over to you all to do more of the Q&A.
Yeah, and this is Erin. I think the hand raised was by Melody Cease. Melody, I think I have unmuted you on our end, and perhaps if you click unmute on your end, you should be able to ask your question or make your comment. Not sure if you can hear us, Melody. It looks like you have a question. I'm checking in the question pane. Feel free to chime in now if you have a question. Otherwise, it might be tricky. It's tricky for me to figure out, in full disclosure, the first GoToWebinar I've helped host, so bear with us.
And did you want to have Mansell while we're trying to work on Melody's unmute? I'm looking at it as well. Oh, wait a minute. You are self-muted, it says, Melody. Oh, and I'm unmuting you as an organizer, so you should be able to unmute now. All right, if that doesn't work, let's hold off on that for a moment. And you could either, Melody, type your question into the chat box or into the question. Eileen, did you have something that Mansell, or was Mansell able to be unmuted?
Well, I think Mansell was talking about there's a woman at EPA Region 9 that's doing some more research, additional research on the do-it-yourself kits, fans. EPA Region Kathleen Stewart doing studies on the DIY filters. And then as I posted, Puget Sound Clean Air Agency did a very small study on them. And yes, they're actually quite effective. But as they always come with a caveat, everyone, that please do not leave those fans plugged in while sleeping or away from your home. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead, Erin, if you want, transfer the screen to me. I do have that slide up.
I think you still have control, but maybe need to close the polls. Let's see if I can help with
The polls are my nemesis today. All right.
that.
Did that
Something's
work?
happened. Yeah. I
Okay.
don't see your slides yet, but I see that you're
All right.
working.
I think we're good. Hey, everybody, thanks for your patience. We're going to wrap up in about 4 minutes. We have the raffle winner pulled up here, and we'll just take about 2 more minutes to see. We had a couple questions that if you can unmute and want to share, again, we're going to do this at the end of each webinar, but how did you innovate? Let's see, how have you innovated? What successes you've achieved, and what were your key lessons learned? So I'll just hold it there, see if I see another hand up.
And these questions are for Tiffany in the audience?
For Tiffany and the audience. So Tiffany, if something stands out, I know you answered several of these, but let's see who has their hand up here. I see Melody. Let's see, okay. Is it Javier? You're
Yeah, this is
unmuted.
Javier. Good morning.
Good morning.
I just had a comment on the fan filters. One of the issues that we're having here in Ventura County is that because of the fires, a lot of the attics got full of ash. And because of the infiltration issues with the homes, when you have air scrubbers or filters, you're actually bringing air from the attics. Now, air from the attics is one of the dirtiest air in the whole house. So I would caution people using filters inside without doing an air seal on the top plate of the attic. For example, an air scrubber that has been used after the fires to clean the air inside the home, usually what it does, it brings air from the outside through the attic and through all the holes that are up in the ceiling, like recessed lighting, outlets, and things like that. So it really doesn't help unless you do some type of air seal and clean the attic from ashes and all that nasty stuff, insulation that's up there. So I think that if you're gonna do filters inside the home, that you should really take a look at the attic air seal when you guys do this.
Yeah, Xavier, that's a great point. And yes, not only attics, but crawl spaces. And you may not have crawl spaces. Your housing might be slab on grade, but you're absolutely correct. The air is going to pull from wherever it can, including your attics or crawl spaces, your walls and all of that. But yeah, air sealing, insulation, caulking, all of that can be crucial. Now, having said that, sometimes this is the only way to get people to filter their air. So it's not a panacea, but hopefully it's better than nothing. So, but you're quite right. It is one of those things that should be taken into consideration. And, I would love everybody's housing stock to be brought up to great standards where air sealing and, we've got blower door tests on every home and we know where all the stuff's coming in, but unfortunately that doesn't happen. But you're right. So it is an interesting situation. The only thing, if there is any insulation up in the attic, it actually could act as a filter for like carpeting can act as a filter sometimes under doorways. So I don't know, it's a very interesting comment and definitely something that should be considered. Thank you for bringing that up.
Boy, it was brutal. I am just putting myself back on camera. The other speakers, please feel free to do that while we wrap up. That was brilliant. I'd muted myself. I'm here online just to say hello, thank you. And as we wrap up, I have the raffle winner here. And then I also wanted, while I'm pulling that person up, Tiffany, do you have anything you want to share with Tribes before we wrap up? Just a reminder, next Monday the 3rd, Monday, May 10th, register for both. We're going to hear from Spokane Tribe, ANTHC, from let's see, Brooke Sanderson, Loudoun Tribal Council. Did I miss anybody? Eileen talking about her work from Tulalip Tribes. So join us, register for those. You'll get a reminder. Tiffany, I'm going to just read this person's name, and then if you want to close us out by any lessons, final lessons you'd share, and it is Tylo Kennedy with the Claywalk Tribe. Yay, we all just make some kind of yay sound. So we'll follow up by email with you. And on that note, Tiffany, anything you want to share with us?
The only, I guess, advice I would have, like I said before, have a plan, then have another plan. And honestly, probably have another plan after that, because nothing is going to turn out the way that you think. We were going to start distributing these in 2019, and well, it's 2021, and I didn't start giving these out until March, maybe. And granted, we have given out, oh, that's math, 22 the first go round. We've dropped off 16 more, and I'm currently waiting on materials to put together 20 more. The other thing I would say is, don't be the only one putting them together, because it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort, and I've been the main one doing it, so it's a lot. That's it.
But Tiffany, you're a champion, and we're just really excited to profile you today. And congratulations to the work you put into it, the relationships you built with other departments, and all the homes that you have impacted. And Erin, with that, do you want to close us out with anything? I think we're right on the hour.
Sure. I put a couple of messy looking links into the chat box, and we'll follow up with perhaps clearer links, but we hope that you can join us next Monday and the Monday after. And I just want to thank all of our presenters so much for sharing all of your insights today and for preparing your presentations. And thank you everyone for joining us. We hope to see all 116 of you next Monday as well. And we hope everyone has an excellent week. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. See you next week.